Section 43 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 9. Ante-Purgatory, the Veil of Flowers, Dante's First Dream, the Gate of Purgatory.
Already was old Titan's concubine whitening upon the Orient's balcony, outside the arms of her sweet paramour. Already was her forehead shining bright with gems arranged according to the shape of that cold beast, which smites one with its tail. And night had, of the steps wherewith she climbs, already taken 2 where we were then, and now the 3rd was lowering its wings. When I, who had somewhat of Adam in me, o'ercome with sleep, reclined upon the grass, on which all 5 of us were sitting then, near morning, at the hour in which the swallow begins to sing her melancholy lays, perchance in memory of her earliest woes, and when, much more a pilgrim from the flesh, and less imprisoned by its thoughts, our mind well nigh prophetic in its vision is. An eagle in a dream I seemed to see suspended in the sky, with plumes of gold and wings outspread, intent on swooping down. And it appeared to me that I was where his friends were left behind by Ganymede, when to the highest council he was raised. I thought within myself, perhaps this bird is wont to strike but here, and from elsewhere, perhaps, disdains to lift one with its claws. Then, having wheeled a while, it seemed to me that terrible as lightning it came down, and bore me up as far as to the fire. There it and I both seemed to burn together, and so intense was that imagined burning, my sleep was broken of necessity. Achilles roused himself no differently, turning around him his awakened eyes, nor knowing in what region he might be, when sleeping in her arms his mother took him away from Chiron to the Isle of Syros, from which the Greeks removed him afterwards. Then I aroused myself, when from my face sleep fled away, and death-like pale I turned, like one who freezes when o'ercome by fright. Only my comforter was at my side, and now the sun was higher than 2 hours, and toward the open sea my face was turned.
Be not afraid,
my lord then said to me,
be reassured, for we are faring well. Restrain not, but expand thine every power. At Purgatory art thou now arrived. Behold the cliff there, which encloses it. Behold the entrance where it broken seems. Just now, when, in the dawn preceding day, thy soul was sleeping in thee on the flowers, wherewith the place down yonder is adorned, a lady came and said,
I am Lucia. Allow me to take up this sleeping man. I shall assist him thus upon his way.
Sordello and the other noble forms remained. She took thee, and when daylight dawned, hither came up, and in her footprints I. She laid thee here, and first her lovely eyes revealed to me that opened entrance. Then both she and sleep together passed away.
Like one who, when in doubt, is reassured and into comfort turns his fear when once the truth has been disclosed to him, I changed, and when my leader wholly freed from care beheld me, upward o'er the cliff he moved, and I behind him followed toward the height. Reader, thou surely seest how I exalt my subject. Therefore be thou not surprised if I support it now with greater art. Nearer we drew, and were in such a place, that where at first there seemed to be a break, just like a fissure that divides a wall, I saw a gate, and under, to approach it, 3 steps of different colour each, and then a keeper, who as yet said not a word. And as I opened more and more mine eyes, I saw him sitting on the upper step, such in his face that I endured him not, and in his hand he had a naked sword, which so reflected upon us its rays, that toward him oft I turned my eyes in vain.
Say what it is you wish, from where you are.
He then began.
And where your escort is. Beware lest coming up should do you harm.
A heavenly lady, of these things aware,
My teacher answered him,
said unto us just now, Go thither, yonder is the gate.
And unto good may she advance your steps.
The courteous keeper of the gate resumed,
Come forwards, therefore, unto these our stairs.
Made of white marble was the first great step to which we came, so polished and so smooth, and mirrored me therein as I appeared. The second step, darker than purple-black, was of a rough and calcined kind of stone, cracked lengthwise and across. The third, which rests in massive shape above it, seemed to me to be of porphyry as flaming red as blood appears when spurting from a vein. Upon this last, God's angel held both feet, sitting upon the threshold, which to me appeared to be a rock of adamant. Up over those 3 steps my leader then drew me along with my goodwill, and said,
Humbly request him to undo the lock.
Devoutly at his holy feet I cast me. I begged that of his mercy he would open me. But first I smote upon my breast 3 times. Then with his sword's sharp point he traced 7 P's upon my brow, and told me,
See thou to it, that when inside thou wash away these wounds.
Ashes, or earth when excavated dry, would with his garment of one colour be. And from beneath it he drew forth 2 keys. One was of gold, the other silver was. First with the white, and after with the yellow. He so did to the gate that I was pleased.
Whenever one of these keys faileth so, that in the lock it doth not rightly turn,
Said he to us,
this passage opens not. More precious is the first, and yet the other. Ere it unlock, much skill and judgment needs, for it is that one which unties the knot. Peter, from whom I hold them, bade me err rather than opening, than in keeping closed, provided folk fell prostrate at my feet.
He pushed the holy portal's door thereat, and said to us,
Go in, but I inform you that he who looks behind returns outside.
And when that sacred gateway's folding doors, which were of strong resounding metal made, were on their iron hinges turned around, Tarpeia roared not so, nor proved so shrill, when good Metellus was removed from her, because of which she afterwards kept lean. I turned to heed its first resounding tones, and Thee we praise, O Lord, I seemed to hear in voices mixed with those delightful sounds. What I was hearing made upon me then just the impression one is wont to get when people with an organ sing, for now the words are heard, and now again are not.
End of Purgatorio Canto 9. Section 44 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio Canto 10. Purgatory, the first ring. Pride. Instances of humility. The expiation of pride.
When past the threshold of the gate we went, whose use the evil love of souls impairs, because it makes the crooked path seem straight, 'twas by its sound I knew that it had closed. And had I turned mine eyes in its direction, what would have fittingly excused my fault? We mounted through a fissure in the rock, which moved about to this side and to that, as moves a wave that flees and draweth near.
A little skill must here be used by us,
My leader then began.
in keeping close, now here, now there, to the receding side.
This caused our steps to be so slow and short that to her bed the waning moon had gone to rest herself again ere we had issued forth from that needle's eye. But when set free we were, and in the open up above, where back the mountain's side recedes, I, weary, and both of us uncertain of our way, stopped short upon a level place up there, more lonely than our roads through desert lands. From where its margin borders on the void, up to the foot of that high-rising bank, would measure thrice a human body's length. And far as e'er mine eye could wing its flight, now on the right, and now upon the left, such did this girding ledge appear to me. Our feet had not been moving on it yet, when I perceived the bank surrounding it, which, being perpendicular, could not be climbed. White marble was, and so adorned with carvings, that not only Polycletus, but nature too, would there be put to shame. The angel who to earth came with the word of peace, which, wept for during many years, had after its long closure opened heaven, appeared before us there in gentle mien, sculptured so truthfully, it did not seem that he could be an image that is dumb. One would have sworn that he was saying, "Hail!" for she was there portrayed in effigy, who turned the key that opened love on high. And in her mien and acts she had the words, Behold the handmaid of the Lord, impressed as clearly as a figure stamped in wax.
Keep not thy mind on one place only fixed,
My gentle teacher said, who had me there on that side of him where one has his heart. I therefore moved my eyes, and further on than Mary, on the side where him I had, who urged me to go on. I then beheld another story graven in the rock. Passing by Virgil, therefore, I drew near, so that it might be set before mine eyes. Cut in the marble there, the cart and oxen were drawing up the holy ark, which made men dread a charge not given them in trust. People in front appeared, and all of them, forming 7 choirs, made one of my 2 senses say no, and the other one say yes, they sing. So too, by reason of the incense smoke, which there was pictured forth, my eyes and nose became discordant as to yes and no. The humble psalmist there, with loins girt up, came dancing on before the blessed vessel, and doing so was more and less than king. And Michal, opposite to this portrayed, was from a palace window looking down, as would an angry woman filled with scorn. And where I was, I onward moved my feet, that I might closely note another tale, which after Michal gleamed upon me white. The glorious action of that Roman prince was storied here, whose worth moved Gregory to win his mighty triumph. I refer to Emperor Trajan. At his bridle stood a widow who in tears showed signs of grief. The space around him there seemed trampled down and thronged with horsemen, while above his head eagles, it seemed, upon a field of gold were fluttering in the wind. Among all these, the sorrowing woman seemed to say,
My lord, avenge me for the slaying of my son, which breaks my heart.
And he to answer her,
Wait now till I return.
and she, like one whom sorrow makes impatient, said,
But what, my lord, if thou shouldst not return?
and he,
That one will do it who shall hold my place.
How shall another's goddess help thy case,
she answered him,
if thou forget thine own?
then he,
Now be thou comforted, for needs must I perform my duty ere I leave. Justice so wills, and pity keeps me here.
he to whose vision naught was ever new, created this seen language, new to us, since not found here on earth. While with delight I looked upon the pictures of such great humilities, which for their maker's sake are also dear to see.
on this side, lo, much people come, but slow the steps they take.
The poet murmured,
Toward the grades above, these souls will send us forward on our way.
mine eyes, intent on gazing, to behold new things for which with eagerness they longed, in turning toward him were not slow to move. Yet I do not have thee, reader, shriek dismayed from thy good purposes, through hearing how God wills that what is due to be paid. Heed not the nature of the torment, think of what comes after. Think that at the very worst, beyond the judgment day, it cannot go. Then I began, that teacher which toward us I see advancing does not look like people, nor know I what, my sight is so deceived. And he to me,
Their torment heavy nature so bows them toward the ground, that my eyes too struggled therewith at first. But steadily gaze there, and disentangle with thine eyes what underneath those stones is coming on. Thou now canst see how each one smites himself.
O ye proud Christians, sad and weary creatures, who, seek in mental vision, put your trust in backward-moving steps, perceive ye not that worms we are, created but to form the angelic butterfly, which flies unscreened to judgment? Why then is it that your mind soars up in pride, since ye are, as it were, defective insects, even as is a worm, in which formation is not yet complete? As to hold up a ceiling or a roof, in lieu of corbel, one perceives at times a human figure joining knees to breast, which out of unreality gives birth to real distress in him who sees it. Such seems these to me, when I had given good heed. They were in truth both more and less bowed down, as each had more or less upon his back. But he that in his acts most patient was, seemed to say, weeping, I can bear no more.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 10. Section 45 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 11. Purgatory, the first ring. Pride. The Lord's Prayer, the proud.
Our Father, thou that in the heavens dost dwell, not circumscribed, but for the greater love thou hast for what thou madest first on high.
Let both thy name and worth be given praise by every creature, even as it is meet that to thy loving spirit thanks be given.
And may thy kingdom's peace come down to us, since we cannot attain it of ourselves. For all our striving, save it also come.
As gladly of their wills thine angels make a sacrifice to thee, singing all hail, so likewise gladly may men do with theirs.
Give us this day our daily spirit food, without which, through this bitter wilderness, he backward goes, who onward toileth most.
And as we pardon every one the wrong we've suffered, of thy mercy do thou us forgive, regarding not what we deserve.
Our virtue, which is easily overcome, test thou not through our ancient enemy, but set us free from him, who tempted so.
This is last request, dear Lord. It is not indeed made for ourselves, who need not make it here, but is for their sake who behind us stayed.
Thus praying good speed for themselves and us, those shades beneath a burden went their way, not unlike that whereof one dreams at times, unequally tormented all of them, and weary o'er the first ring round and round, purging away the world's defiling mists. If good things there be always said for us, what can be said and done on their behalf down here, by those whose will is rooted well? Surely one ought to help them wash away the stains they brought with them, that they may issue, cleansed and unburdened, to the starry spheres.
Pray, so may pity and justice speedily unburden you, that ye may move your wings and raise yourself according to your wish. Show us on which hand lies the shortest way to reach the stairs, and, be there more than one, teach us the path that hath the gentlest slope, for, owing to the load of Adam's flesh, which clothes his spirit, he who with me comes is slow in climbing, though against his will.
As to the words which in reply they said to those which he, whom I was following, spoke, it was not evident from whom they came. But this was said:
Come with us on the right, along the bank, and ye shall find the pass, which may be climbed by one that's still alive. And were I not prevented by the stone, which tames my haughty neck, and forces me to keep my face bowed down at this man here, who liveth still and telleth not his name, I'd look, to see if he's one I know, and stir his pity for this heavy load. Latin I was, and born to a great Tuscan. Guglielmo Aldobrandesco was my father. I know not if you ever knew his name. My forebears' ancient blood and noble deeds caused me to be so arrogant that I, unmindful of our common mother, Earth, held every man in scorn to such extent I died for it. As well knows Siena's folk, and every child in Campagnatico. I am Umberto, nor to me alone doth this work ill, for pride hath with itself drawn all my kin into calamity. And here, for this, must I needs bear this load among the dead, till God be satisfied, since I among the living bore it not.
Listening, I bowed my face, and one of them, not he who had been speaking, writhed around under the burden which was hampering him, and, having seen and recognized me, called, and kept his eyes with effort fixed on me, who, as I went along with them, was stooping. Then, "Oh," said I, "art thou not Oderisi, the glory of Agobio and the art which in Paris is called illuminating?"
Brother,
said he,
more smiling are the parchments which Franco Bolognese paints. The glory is now all his, and only partly mine. Because of that great longing to excel, whereon my heart was set, I certainly would not have been so courteous while I lived. Here is the forfeit paid for pride like this, nor should I be here yet, had it not been that, while I still could sin, I turned to God. O empty glory of our human powers, how short a time green lasts upon its top, unless uncultured ages overtake it. Once Cimabue thought that he would hold the field in painting, yet the cry is all for Giotto now, hence that one's fame is dark. Thus hath one Guido taken from the other the glory of our tongue, and he is born perhaps who from the nest will banish both. Worldly repute is but a breath of wind, which cometh now from here and now from there, and shifts its name because its quarter shifts. What greater fame shalt thou have, if when old thou quit thy flesh, than hadst thou died ere pap and chink were dropped, 1,000 years from now? For that, if to eternity compared, is shorter than the twinkling of an eye is to the sky's most slowly moving sphere. All Tuscany proclaimed the fame of him who walks so slowly on the road before me, yet hardly is a whisper of him left in Siena now, whose governor he was, what time the rage of Florence was destroyed, which then as haughty was, as abject now. Your worldly fame is like the hue of grass, which comes and goes, and he discolours it through whom it springs up tender from the ground.
And I, thy true speech heartening me with good humility, thou prick'st my swollen pride. But who is he of whom thou spokest just now?
That,
he replied,
is Prophet San Salvano, and here he is, because presumptuously he brought all Siena under his control. Thus hath he gone, and without rest he goes, ere since he died, who yonder dares too much, in satisfaction in such coin as this.
And I then, if the spirit who delays before repenting till the verge of life abides below and cometh not up here, unless good prayers assist him, till as long a time be past as he had been alive, wherefore hath this man's coming been vouchsafed?
When in his greatest glory,
he replied,
all shame removed, he freely took his stand in Siena's camp, and there, to free a friend suffering in Charles's prison, he brought himself to quake in every vein. I'll say no more, and know that what I say is darkly spoken. But so, ere long, will thine own neighbours act, that thou'lt be able to interpret it. This deed of his relieved him from those bounds.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 11. Section 46 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 12. Purgatory, the first ring. Pride. Instances of punished pride. The angel of humility.
With equal steps, like oxen going yoked, I went along beside that burdened soul as long as my dear pedagogue allowed. But when he said,
Leave him, and go thou on, for here 'tis well that each should urge his bark with sail and oars as much as e'er he can,
I straightened me as much as walking called for, although my thoughts kept humble and depressed. On had I moved, and in my teacher's steps was following willingly, and both of us were showing now how light of step we were, when
downward turn thine eyes.
He said to me,
Well with it be to calm thee on thy way, that thou shouldst see the bed thy souls are treading.
As over those that neath them buried lie, that they may be recalled to people's minds, tombs level with the ground the record bear of what they were before, whence there they oft are wept for through the prick of memory which spurs to grief the pitiful alone. Even so I saw engraved in sculpture here, though finer in respect to workmanship, as much as from the mount juts out as path, I saw on one side him who once was made nobler by far than any other creature fall like a flash of lightning down from heaven. I saw Briareus on the other side, pierced by an arrow from the sky, lie prone and heavy on the ground with mortal cold. I saw Apollo, Mars I saw, and Pallas, as still in armour round their sire they stood, gazing upon the giant's scattered limbs. I saw great Nimrod neath his mighty work, dumb with confusion, as he watched the folk who once were proud with him on Sheena's plain. Niobe, with what sad eyes I thee saw pictured forth in stone, between thy children, the 7 and 7 thy dead upon the road. O Saul, how plainly there on thine own sword didst thou seem dead upon Gilboa's mount, which felt thereafter neither rain nor dew. O mad Arachne, thee I saw, as when already half a spider thou wast sad amid the tatters of thy fatal work. O Rehoboam, not a threat seems now thy face, but terror-stricken, as away a chariot bears thee, lest thou be pursued. It showed, moreover, that hard pavement thee, how costly once Alcmaeon caused his mother's unlucky ornament to seem to her. It showed how, in the temple's walls, his sons cast themselves on Sennacherib, and how, when he was dead, they there abandoned him. It showed the slaughter and the cruel woe wrought by Tamiris when she said to Cyrus, "With blood I fill thee, that didst thirst for blood." It showed too how the Assyrians took to flight, routed, when Holofernes had been killed, and also what was of that slaughter left. I saw proud Troy in ashes and in caves. O Ilion, how degraded and how vile it showed thou wast, the image there perceived. What master, or of brush or graving tool, could reproduce the shadows and the features, which there would cause all cultured minds to wonder? The dead seemed dead, the living seemed alive. Whoever saw the real, no better saw than I then did what I was treading, as long as bowed I walked. Be ye then proud, and go with haughty looks, ye sons of Eden, nor bow your heads to see your evil path. More of the mountain had we circled now, and of the sun's course far more had we spent, than my not disengaged mind had supposed. And he who always walked attentively ahead of me began,
Lift up thy head. The time for going thus absorbed is past. See there an angel who is making ready to come toward us. See how the 6th handmaiden returns now from the service of the day. With reverence adorn thine acts and face, that he may now be pleased to send us up. Think that this day will never dawn again.
So well accustomed was I to his warning that I should never let my time be lost, that on this theme he could not darkly speak. Towards us the lovely creature was advancing, arrayed in white, and in his countenance such as when trembling seems the morning star. His arms he opened, then he oped his wings, and said to us,
Come, nearby are the steps, and going up is easy after this.
Only a few to this announcement come. O human race, why, born for upward flight, fallest thou so before a little wind? He led us on to where the rock was cut, and there my forehead with his wings he stroked, and promised that my passage would be safe. As on the right hand, to ascend the mount, where seated is the church, which dominates the well-ruled town of Rubaconte's bridge, the slope's bold flight is broken by the stairs constructed in an age when choir and stage were safe. So likewise doth the bank relax, which from the next ledge here quite steeply falls, but closely on each side the high rock rubs. While turning thither we were on our way, voices sang, in such a way as words could not describe. Alas, how different are the passers here from those in hell. For one up here goes in with songs, but there below with frightful wails. We now were climbing up the holy stairs, and lighter far I felt than formerly I seemed to be, when on the level ground. I hence said, "Teacher, say what heavy thing has been removed from me, that as I walk I almost feel no weariness at all." He answered,
When the peas which still remain almost extinct upon thy brow are quite erased, as one is now, thy feet will so be conquered by goodwill that they will feel not only no fatigue, but it will be a pleasure to them to be upward urged.
I then did as do those who go about with something on their head they know not of, till others' gestures cause them to suspect, whereat their hand assists in ascertaining, searches and finds, and so performs the work which cannot be accomplished by their sight. And with my right hand's fingers spread I found that only 6 the letters were, which he who held the keys had o'er my temples cut, and seeing which my leader smiled with joy.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 12. Section 47 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 13. Purgatory, the Second Ring. Envy. Instances of generosity. The envious.
We now were at the summit of the stairs, where for the second time is cut away the mount, ascent of which frees one from sin. And there a cornice, like the first one, girds the hillside round about, save that its arc more quickly curves. There is no shaded carving apparent here, nor is there any mark. The bank seems bare, as also seems the path, with but the livid colour of the rock.
If we wake folk here of whom to ask our way,
the poet argued,
I'm afraid our choice will be, perhaps, delayed too long.
Then on the sun he fixed his steadfast eyes, made of his right the centre for his motion, and turned the left side of himself around.
O thou sweet light, with confidence in whom I enter this new path, conduct us thou,
he said,
as one should be conducted here. Thou warm'st the world, and on it thou dost shine. If aught else urge not to the contrary, thy rays at all times ought to be our guides.
Already had we gone as far up there as here on earth is reckoned for a mile, a little time because of ready will, when, flying toward us, there were spirits heard, who, though unseen, were to the board of love uttering their courteous calls. The voice which first passed flying said aloud,
"They have no wine."
And then behind us kept repeating it, and ere because of having moved away it could be heard no more, another passing cried,
I'm Orestes.
Nor did that one linger. What are these voices, father? Said I then, and even while I was asking, lo, a third which said,
Love those from whom you've ill received.
The kindly teacher then,
This circle whips the fold of envy, hence the scourge's cords are drawn from love. The curb will probably give forth a sound the contrary of this. In my opinion, I believe thou'lt hear it before the pass of pardon thou attain. But keenly through the air address thy gaze, and thou'lt see people on ahead of us, who seated are, and each against the cliff.
Then wider than before I oped mine eyes. I looked ahead, and shades I saw, with cloaks not differing from the colour of the stone. And when a little further on we were, I heard one crying,
Mary, pray for us.
And cries to Michael, Peter, and all the saints. Nor do I think there walks on earth today a man so hard that he would not be pierced by sympathy for what I then perceived. For after I had drawn so near to them that what they did with clearness came to me, tears from my eyes were drawn by bitter grief. Covered they seemed to me with coarse haircloth, and one sustained the other with his shoulder, while all of them were by the bank sustained. Even thus the blind, in want of livelihood, at pardons stand to beg for what they need, and one upon the other bows his head that pity may be speedily aroused, not merely by the sound of what they say, but by their aspect, which no less implores. And as the sun availeth not the blind, so to the shades, whereof I spoke just now, the sky's light willeth not to grant itself. Because an iron band runs through, and sows the eyelids of them all, as with wild hawks one does, since otherwise they'd not keep still. To me it seemed an outrage that, unseen, I should see others as I walked along. I therefore turned to my wise counsellor. He well knew what the dumb man wished to say. and therefore waited not for me to ask, but
Speak.
he said,
Be brief and to the point.
Virgil on that side of the corner sledge was coming on with me, whence one can fall, because it wreathes itself with no bank there. On the other side I had those zealous shades, who through the horrid seams were pressing so their tears, that they were bathing both their cheeks. Turning to them, I thus began, O people, who certain are of seeing that high light, which your desire hath for its only object. So melt grace soon the scum upon your conscience, that memory's stream may through it clearly flow. Tell me, for grateful will it be to me and pleasing, if there is among you here a soul that Latin is. It will be well for him, perhaps, if I should come to know it.
Oh, brother mine, we both are citizens of one true city, but thou meanest one who, while a pilgrim, lived in Italy?
It seemed to me that this I heard for answer a little further on than where I was. I therefore let myself be heard much further. Among the rest I saw a shade which seemed expectant in its looks, and if one asked, how so, held up its chin as do the blind. Spirit, said I, that dost subdue thyself, that thou mayest climb, if she that didst reply, make thyself known to me by place or name.
Sienese I was,
She answered,
and with these cleanse here my guilty life, and pray to him with tears, that he may lend himself to us. Though called Sapia, sapient was I not, for I was far more glad of others' harm than I of my good fortune ever was. And that thou mayest not think that I deceive thee, even as I tell thee, hear how mad I was. Once my year's arch was on its downward course, when with their foes my fellow citizens were joined in battle near the town of Colle. I prayed to God for that which he had willed. When, routed there, they took the bitter path of flight, I felt, on seeing them pursued, a joy unequaled by all other joys. I therefore upward turned my daring face and cried to God, I fear thee now no more, as doth the blackbird at the least fair weather. When I was at the end of life, I longed for peace with God, but not yet would my debt have been diminished by repentance here, had it not been that Pietro Pettinaggio, who of his charity was grieved for me, was mindful of me in his holy prayers. But who art thou, that askest of our state while going on, and hast thine eyes unclosed, as I believe, and dost while breathing talk?
Mine eyes will yet be taken from me here, but not for long, said I, for they have not offended much by being turned by envy. Far greater is the fear wherewith my soul is filled of that tormenting pain below, for even now the load there weighs upon me. And she...
Who then led thee to us up here, if to return below thou think?
And I, he that is with me here and speaketh not. But I am living. Therefore ask of me, elected spirit, if thou'dst have me move my mortal feet in thy behalf on earth.
Oh, this,
She answered,
is so strange to hear, that certainly it proves God's love for thee. Therefore assist me with thy prayers at times. I beg thee by what most thou longest for, if e'er thou tread the soil of Tuscany, that thou among my kin restore my fame. Among that vain folk wilt thou see them there, which hopes in Talamone, and will waste more hope on it than on the Diana quest. But still more will the admirals invest.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 13.
Regardless, I must go. I had a chance to stop him before, but I couldn't.
Section 48 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 14. Purgatory, the Second Ring, Envy. Valdarno and Romagna in 1300. Instances of punished envy.
Who is this spirit, who around our mount is circling thus, ere death have given him flight, and at his will opens and veils his eyes?
I know not who he is, but know he is not alone. Ask thou that nearer art to him, and greet him fairly, so that he may speak.
Two spirits who were leaning on each other thus talked of me upon the right hand there. Then turned their faces up to speak to me, and one said,
Soul that, still held in thy body, toward heaven art going, of thy charity console us now, and tell us whence thou comest and who thou art. For thou dost cause in us such wonder at the grace accorded thee, as that demands which never was before.
And I, a small stream winds through Tuscany, which up in Falterona hath its rise, and is not sated by 100 miles. From somewhere on its banks I bring this body. Vain would it be to tell you who I am, because my name makes no great sound as yet.
If with my mind I rightly penetrate thy meaning.
That one then replied to me, who spoke before.
Thou talkest of the Arno.
Thereat the other spirit said to him,
Why did this man conceal that river's name, as people hide the name of dreadful things?
The shade who had been questioned as to this discharged its duty thus.
I do not know, but meet it is that this vale's name should die. For from its source, where that wild mountain chain, whence severed is Pelorus, swells so greatly that in few places doth it pass that mark, to there where it betakes it to restore whatever from the sea the sky sucks up, whence rivers get what goes along with them, virtue is snake-like as a foe pursued by all, or through the region's evil luck, or through bad customs which incite men there. Hence those that in this wretched valley dwell have changed their nature so, that it would seem that Circe had them in her pasturage. Among foul hogs, of acorns worthier far than of all other food that's fit for man to use, it first directs its sorry path. As down it comes, it afterwards finds curves that snarl more fiercely than their strength comports, and turns from these its snout aside in scorn. It keeps on falling, and the more it swells, the more that cursed and unlucky ditch finds that the dogs are turning into wolves. Descending then through many a gloomy gorge, foxes it finds, so full of fraud, that naught have they to fear, lest cunning master them. Nor shall I cease to speak, though overheard. And for this man 'twere well, if he recall hereafter what a truthful spirit shows me. Thy grandson I behold, who first becomes a hunter of those wolves upon the banks of that fierce stream, and terrifies them all. He sells their flesh while still alive, then kills them as an old beast he would. Of life depriving many, himself of honor he deprives. He issues bloody from the dismal wood, and leaves it such, that in 1,000 years 'twill not rewood itself as once it was.
As at the announcement of some painful loss, the face of him who listens is disturbed, from wheresoe'er the danger may assail him. Even thus did I behold that other soul, who turned to listen, grow distressed and sad, as soon as he had gathered in that speech. The words of one soul and the other's face had caused me to desire to know their names. Therefore with prayers I mingled this request. That spirit, therefore, who addressed me first, began again.
Thou'dst have me condescend to do for thee what thou for me wilt not. But since God wills that so much of his grace should shine in thee, I'll not be niggardly. Guido del Duca know then that I am, and so consumed by envy was my blood, that had I seen a man becoming happy, livid with envy thou hadst seen me turn. Of what I sowed, I'm reaping now the straw. O human race, why set your heart on things wherein companionship must be forbidden? This is Rinieri. This the honor is and glory of the house of Calvary, whose worth since him none hath inherited, nor hath his blood alone despoiled itself, tween Po and mountains, Reno and the sea, of those good things which truth and joy require. For in those bounds the country is so full of poison stocks that only slowly now would they be lessened, even if it were tilled. Were our good Lizio, Arrigo Mainardi, Pier Travassaro, and Guido di Carpigna, who Romagnols turned into bastards now? When in Bologna will a Fabro rise? When in Faenza a Bernardine di Fosco, the noble scion of a little plant? Wonder not, Tuscan, if I weep now, when, with Guido da Prata, I recall to mind Ugo Lindazzo, who among us dwelt, Frederic Tignoso and his company, the Travassara house, the Anastagi, and both these families are void of heirs, the ladies and the knights, the toils and ease which love and courtesy once made us crave where hearts have grown so bad. Oh, Pretinoro, wherefore not vanish, since thy family, and many people with them, have departed, that guiltless they might be? Vanya Cabal, begetting sons no longer, doeth well, but Castarharo ill, and Conio worse, which still takes trouble to beget such counts. Well, the Pagani too will fare when once their demon shall have gone, but not so well that an unspotted fame will e'er remain to them. O Ugolin de Fantu, thy name is safe, since one can now no more be looked for who, as a degenerate, can darken it. But go thy way now, Tuscan, for weeping now affords me far more zest than speech. My talk so distressed my mind.
We knew that those dear spirits heard us leaving, and therefore merely by their keeping still they made us trust the path which we were taking. When we, advancing, found ourselves alone, a voice, which seemed like lightning when it cleaves the air, was heard, and as it reached us there, said,
"Whosoever findeth me shall slay me."
Then vanished, as when thunder rolls away, if suddenly a cloud be rent apart. Soon as our hearing had a truce from this, behold another with so great a crash, it seemed to be its following thunderclap.
I am a Glaudos, who was turned to stone.
Then, to draw closer to the poet's side, I took a backward, not a forward step. The air was calm on all sides now, when he...
That was the painful bit, which in his bounds should hold a man. But ye take in the bait, and so the ancient adversary's hook draweth you to him. Hence of small avail is either curb or lure. Heaven calleth you, and showing to you its eternal beauties, around you moves, and yet your eyes look down. Hence he who seeth all things scourges you.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 14. Section 49 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 15. Purgatory, the second ring. Envy, the angel of generosity. The third ring. Anger, instances of gentleness.
Between the third hour's close and day's beginning as much as is apparent of the sphere, which like a child is ever given to play, so much now of its course toward evening seemed remaining to the sun. 'Twas Vespers there, and midnight here, and fully on the face its rays were striking us, because the mount had been so circled by us that we now were going on directly toward the west. When, far more blindingly than e'er before, I felt my forehead overcome by splendour, and was bewildered by these unknown things. Over my eyebrows hence I raised my hands, and made myself the screen which, filing off, tempers excessive light in what is seen. As when, from water or a looking-glass, a ray leaps up in the opposite direction, and in the same way mounts that down it came, and from the falling of a stone departs at equal distance to the same extent as both experiment and art reveal. Even so it seemed to me that I was smitten as by a light reflected there before me, because of which my sight was swift to flee. Dear Father, what is that, said I, from which I cannot screen my face sufficiently to help me, and which toward us seems to come?
Wonder thou not,
he answered me.
If still heaven's family affect thy sight, an angel is this, who comes to ask us to ascend. It soon will happen that to see such things will be no burden, but as great a joy as nature hath enabled thee to feel.
As soon as we had reached the blessed angel, with joyful voice he said,
Enter from hence a stairway far less steep than were the rest.
We were ascending, having thence departed, when was sung behind us, and my teacher then and I, we two alone, were going up, and as we went I thought of how I might get profit from his words, whereat I turned toward him and asked what meant that spirit from Romagna when he mentioned forbidden and companionship in things. Hence he,
of his worst fold he knows the harm, hence let it not surprise if he therefore rebuke men, that it be lamented less. Because your wishes aim at that, wherein each share is lessened through companionship, envy fain moves the bellows for your sighs. If love, though, for the highest sphere of all, were upward turning your desires, that fear would not be in your breast, because the more there are up yonder by whom ours is said, so much more good doth each of them possess, and so much more love in that cloister burns.
I fast much more from being satisfied, said I, than had I silent been at first, and more of doubt I gather in my mind. How can it be then that a good that's shared should make more owners richer with itself, than if by but a few it be possessed? And he to me,
Because thou fastened thy mind exclusively on earthly things, thou drawest darkness out of every light. That good, ineffable and infinite, which dwells up yonder, runs as fast to love as to bright bodies comes a ray of light. So much it gives itself, as is the warmth it findeth. Hence, as is the extent of love, so much the eternal worth spreads over it. The more there are up there that love each other, the more there are to love, and more the love. And, mirror-like, the more of love each sheds on each. And if my talk sate not thy hunger, thou shalt see Beatrice, and she will fully free thee from this and every other want. Do thou then see to it that speedily thou have removed, as 2 already are, the 5 wounds which are closed by causing pain.
wishing to say, Thou satisfiest me, I saw that I had reached the following ring. My fond eyes therefore caused me to keep still. There it appeared to me that I was wrapped in an ecstatic vision all at once, and that within a temple I perceived much people, and a lady at the door, who with the sweet mien of a mother said,
Wherefore, my son, hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought for thee in sorrow.
Here, when she had ceased to speak, that disappeared which had before appeared. Then there appeared another, o'er whose cheeks those tears were streaming down, which grief distills, when born of great resentment toward another, saying,
If thou art master of the city, about whose name there was among the gods such strife, and whence all knowledge sparkles forth, avenge thyself on those audacious arms, Pisistratus, which dared embrace our daughter.
Kindly and gently then that lord appeared to answer her with looks of self-control.
What shall we do to him who hateth us, if he who loves us is by us condemned?
Then folk I saw inflamed by anger's fire, who bent on killing a young man with stones, cried to each other naught but,
Kill him! Kill!
And him I saw bowed to the ground in death which now oppressed him. Of his eyes he ere made gates of heaven, and in that anguish prayed the Lord on high with looks which unlock pity, that he his persecutors would forgive. When once my mind returned outside again to those things which outside of it are true, I recognized my not untruthful errors. My leader, who could see that I was acting like one who frees himself from slumber, said,
What aileth thee, that thou canst not stand up, but hast been coming more than half a league, veiling thine eyes, and reeling with thy legs, like one overcome by either wine or sleep?
Oh, my dear father, if thou listen to me, I'll tell thee what it was appeared to me, said I, when I was thus deprived of legs. And he,
If on thy face 100 masks thou hadst, thy thoughts would not be hid from me, however small they were. What thou hast seen was lest thou free thyself from opening up thy heart unto those waters of thy peace, which from the eternal fountain are diffused. I did not ask what ails thee, as would one who looks but with the eye which seeth not, when once the body lies inanimate, but asked it to endow thy feet with strength. So must the indolent be spurred when slow to use their waking time when it returns.
On through the vesper hours we went along, forward intent, as far as e'er our eyes could reach, against the late and shining rays, when lo, a smoke in our direction came little by little, and as dark as night, nor was there any place of shelter from it. This of pure air deprived us and our eyes.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 15. Section 50 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 16. Purgatory, the third ring, anger, free will, and the corruption of the world.
The gloom of hell and of a night deprived of every planet neath a narrow sky, darkened as much as possible by clouds, ne'er made so thick a veil before my face, nor to my feeling was so rough in tissue, as was the smoke which covered us up there. For that permitted not of opened eyes, because of which my wise and trusty escort drew near to me and offered me his shoulder, even as a blind man walks behind his guide in order not to go astray and strike aught that might hurt him or might even kill him. So, going through that foul and bitter air, I listened to my leader, who said only,
"Take care that thou be not cut off from me."
Voices I heard, and each appeared to pray for peace and mercy to the Lamb of God to take its sins away. Their only prelude was Lamb of God, and all had but one word and intonation. Hence among them all there seemed to be the fullest harmony. "Are those then spirits, teacher, whom I hear?" said I, and he to me,
"Thou judgest rightly. As on they go, they loosen, angers not."
Now who art thou that cleavest thus our smoke, and yet dost speak of us as if thou still by monthly calends wert dividing time?
These words were uttered by a single voice. My teacher therefore said to me,
"Reply, and ask him if on this side one goes up."
And I, O creature that dost cleanse thyself, that beautiful thou mayst return to him who made thee, thou'lt hear marvels following me.
"I'll follow thee as far as I'm allowed,"
he answered.
"And if smoke permit not sight, hearing instead will keep us linked together."
I thereupon began, "I go on high while in that swathing band which death dissolves, and through the infernal anguish came I here. And whereas God hath wrapped me in his grace so much that he would have me see his court by means entirely out of modern use, conceal not who thou wast before thy death, but tell it me, and whether toward the pass I rightly go, and be thy words our guides."
Lombard I was, and Marco was I called. Familiar with the world, I loved the worth toward which all men have now unbent their bows. For mounting upward, thou art going rightly.
He thus replied, and added,
"I beseech thee, pray for me there, when thou shalt be above."
And I to him, "I pledge my faith to thee that what thou askest of me I will do, but with a doubt I'll burst, unless therefrom I free myself. Simple at first, it now is doubled by thy speech, which makes me, here and elsewhere, sure of that wherewith I link it. The world is certainly as wholly void of every virtue as thou tellest me, and is with evil big and overspread. But pray point out its cause, that I may see and show it unto other men. For one puts it in heaven, another here below." At first he heaved a sigh profound, which breathed to changed. Then,
"Brother,"
he began,
"the world is blind, and thou indeed comest hence. Ye that are living still attribute upward each cause to heaven alone, as though it moved everything with it of necessity. If this were so, free will would be destroyed within you, and no justice would there be in having joy for good and grief for ill. Heaven starts your inclinations, though I say not all. But even supposing that I did, light has been given to you for good and evil with free will, which, if it endure fatigue in its first fights with heaven, will afterward, if duly nourished, conquer everything beneath a greater and better nature you freely love. And that creates within you the mind, which heaven hath not in its control. Hence, if the present world go wrong, the cause is in yourselves, and should in you be so. Of this I'll now a true spy be, forth from the hand of him who ere it lives delights in it, even like a little maid who weeps and laughs and wantons like a child, issues the simple soul, which knoweth naught, save that, proceeding from a joyous Maker, it gladly turns to that which pleases it. At first it tasteth things of little good. Deceived thereby, it runneth after them, unless a guide or check divert its love. Hence, as a bit, a law must needs be set. A king must needs be had, who should at least the tower of the truthful town discern. The laws exist, but who sets hand to them? No one, because the shepherd who precedes can chew the cud, but hath not cloven hooves. The people hence, who see their guide strive solely for those good things for which it longs itself, feedeth thereon, and asks for nothing more. Well canst thou see that evil leadership, and not that nature in you is corrupt, is what has caused the world to be so wicked. Rome, which once made it good, was wont to have two suns, which rendered visible both roads, that of the world and that of God. One now hath quenched the other. To the bishop's staff the sword is joined, and badly needs must one fare with the other, since, together joined, neither the other fears. Recall to mind, if thou believe me not, the ear of corn, for every grass is by its own seed known. Throughout the country watered by the Po and Adige, one used to find both virtue and courtesy. Ere Frederick had his strife, with safety it can nowadays be crossed by any who, through shame, refrained from speech with good men, or avoided intercourse. There are indeed 3 old men still, in whom the old age chides the modern, and who long for God to give them back a better life. Guirardo da Palazzo, good Guirardo, and Guido da Castello, better called the simple Lombard, as in France he is, say therefore that today the Church of Rome, by joining in herself 2 kinds of rule, falls in the mire, and fouls herself and low.
"O Marco, mine," said I, "thine arguments are good, and now I see why Levi's sons were from inheriting debarred. But which Gherardo is the one who, as thou sayest, as sample of the people now extinct, remaineth to reproach this savage age?"
"Thy speech deceives or tests me,"
he replied,
"for thou, addressing me in Tuscan speech, seemst not to know who good Gherardo was. I know him not by other added name, unless I took it from his daughter Gaia. God keep you, for with you I come no further. Already whitening now, behold the light which rays out through the smoke, and I must go, the angels there, ere I be seen by him."
He thus turned back, nor would he hear me more.
End of Purgatorio Canto 16. Section 51 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 17. Purgatory, the third ring. Anger. Instances of punished anger. The angel of peace. Love.
Reader, remind thyself if e'er a fog o'ertook thee on a mountain, one through which thou couldst not see in any other way than moles do through the membrane o'er their eye. How, when the damp, thick mists begin to thin, the sun's orb feebly pierces them. And quickly with thine imagination come to see how I first saw the sun again, which now was at its setting. Thus, as I mine own was matching with my teacher's trusty steps, from such a cloud I came into the beams, already dead upon the shores below. O thou imagination, which at times dost steal us so from outer things, that though 1,000 trumpets blow, one hears them not, what moveth thee, if sense contribute naught? A light which takes in heaven its form impels thee, freely, or by a will which sends it down. The vision of her cruelty who changed her form into the bird which most delights in song appeared in my imagination, and hereupon my mind was so shut up within itself that nothing that was then received by it came to it from without. Then into my high fantasy there reigned one crucified, contemptuous and proud in aspect, and as such he met his death. Around him were the great Ahasuerus, Esther his wife, and righteous Mordecai, who so wholehearted was in word and deed. And as this picture of its own accord broke up, as doth a bubble when it lacks the water it was formed withal, a maid rose in my vision next, who bitterly was weeping, and was saying,
Why, O Queen, didst thou through anger wish to be no more? Lavinia, not to lose, thyself hast slain, and now hast lost me. Mother, this is I, who, ere I mourn another's loss, mourn thine.
As sleep is broken when unwonted light strikes closed eyes suddenly, and being broken quivers before it wholly dies away, even so did my imagining break up, as soon as on my face there smote a light brighter by far than we are wont to see. I turned around to notice where I was, when lo, a voice which said,
The ascent is here.
From every other interest turned my mind, and made my will so eager to behold the speaker that when such it never rests until it sees its object face to face. But as before the sun, which whelms our eyes and veils its figure through excess of light, so likewise here my visual powers fail.
A godlike spirit this, who, though unasked, is pointing out to us our upward path, and with his own light is himself concealing. With us he deals as one would with himself, for he that waits till asked, when seeing need, inclines already meanly to refuse. To such a bidding let us now accord our feet, and try to climb ere darkness come, for later one could not, till day returned.
Thus said my leader then, and I with him turned toward a flight of stairs, our feet. And I, when on its first step, near me felt, as 'twere, the motion of a wing, and on my face a fanning, while a voice said,
Blessed are the peaceful, who are free from evil wrath.
So high above us now were those last beams which by the night are followed, that the stars were coming out on many sides. And oh, my strength, why dost thou fade away so fast? I to myself was saying, for a truce I felt was set the powers of my legs. We now were where the flight of stairs went up no further, and as motionless we were as is a vessel when the shore is reached. And for a while I waited to find out if aught upon the new ring could be heard. Then toward my teacher turning round, I said, Say, my dear father, what offence is purged in this ring, here where now we are? Although our feet keep still, let not thy talking cease. And he to me,
The love of good, when scant of what it should have been, is here attained. Here beats again the ill-retarded oar, that now, in order that thou understand more clearly still, turn thou thy mind to me, and some good fruit thou gather from our stay. Neither creator,
he began,
nor creature was e'er devoid of either innate love or that which conscious is, and this thou knowest. The innate love is always free from error, but the other kind can err through evil aim or through deficient or excessive strength. While well directed toward the primal goods and toward the secondary self-restraint, it cannot be the cause of sinful pleasure. But when it turns toward evil things, or runs to good with more or less zeal than it ought, the creature then against his maker works. From this then thou canst understand that love must be the seed in you of every virtue, and every deed that merits punishment. And now, since love can never turn its face from its own subject's welfare, from self-hate all are secure. And since one cannot think of any self as being from the first divided and existing of itself, all hearts are thus debarred from hating him. It follows that if I in arguing judge well, one's neighbor's is the harm one loves. And this is born in three ways in your clay. There's he who on the abasement of his neighbor his hope of rising sets, and only longs that from his greatness he may be brought low. And he who fears the loss of power, favor, renown, and honor, should another rise, and grieve so that he loves the contrary, than he who by injustice seems so shamed that greedy he becometh for revenge. And such must needs prepare for others' harm. This triform love is wept for here below. But now I'd have thee hear about the other, which runs the love in a corrupt way. Who apprehend confusedly a good wherein the mind can rest and long for it, and therefore every one attempts to reach it. If slothful be the love impelling you to see or win it after just repentance, this present cornice tortures you for that. Another good there is, which never makes man happy. It is not real happiness, nor the good essence, fruit and root of all that's good. The love that yields too much to that is wept for in 3 rings above us here. But why it's reckoned threefold I say not, that thou mayst seek the reason for thyself.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 17. Section 52 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 18. Purgatory, the 4th ring. Sloth. Love and free will. Instances of punished sloth.
The lofty doctor, having ended thus his argument, was looking in my eyes, eager to see if I seemed satisfied, and I, who by new thirst was still spurred on, was silent outwardly, and in me said, my many questions trouble him perhaps. But that true father who perceived the wish, which being shy did not disclose itself, by speaking first emboldened me to speak. Hence I, my vision, teacher, in thy light becomes so keen, that clearly I discern all that thy talk implieth or unfolds. I therefore beg of thee, sweet father dear, explain to me why thou ascribest to love every good action and its contrary.
Direct thine understanding's sharpened eyes toward me,
he said,
and clear to thee will be the error of the blind who pose as guides. The mind, which is created prone to love, inclines toward everything that pleases it, when roused by pleasure to activity. Your faculty of apprehending draws an image from a reality, and so displays it in you that your mind is caused to turn to it. And if thus turned, your mind inclines thereto, that tendency is love, is nature bound in you again by pleasure. Then, just as fire, by reason of its form, moves upward, being made for mounting thither, where in its element it longer lasts, even so the captive mind begins to yearn, a motion of the soul, and never rests until the thing it loveth gives it joy. Apparent to thee now can be the extent to which the truth is hid from those that claim that each love in itself deserveth praise, because perhaps its object in itself seems always to be good, and yet not good is every seal, though good may be its wax.
Thy words, together with my heeding mind, I answered him, have shown me what love is. But this hath made me bigger with a doubt. For if love from without us is born in us, and if the soul can do naught else, her doing all right or wrong is no desert of hers. And he,
what reason sees here I can tell thee. For aught beyond its ken, look thou alone to Beatrice, for that's a work of faith. Every substantial form which is distinct from matter, and is also joined with it, hath in it a specific power collected, which, save in operation, is not seen, and only shows itself in its effects, as life doth by its green leaves in a plant. None knows, however, whence the understanding of first cognitions comes, or whence the bent toward those first appetites which are in you, as zeal for making honey is in bees. This first will, hence, deserves nor praise nor blame. Now, that all others be conformed to this, the power which counsels inborn is in you, and ought to hold the threshold of assent. This is the source, whence comes the ground of merit in you as it gathers in and winnows out your good and guilty loves. Those who in reasoning attained the bottom perceived this inborn liberty and left the world the teachings of morality. Supposing then that every love that flames within you rises of necessity, within you lies the power to master it. This noble virtue is by Beatrice called freedom of the will. Hence see that thou recall it, should she speak of it to thee.
The moon, in rising, close to midnight late, and looking like a bucket all on fire, was causing now the stars to seem more rare. As, counter to the heavens, it coursed the paths the sun inflames, whene'er the Roman sees it setting between the Sards and Corsicans. And now that noble shade whence Pietola hath greater fame than any mantle and village, had put aside the load I laid on him. Hence I, who, as an answer to my questions, had reaped his clear and easy talk, remained like one confused because of drowsiness. But suddenly this sleepiness of mine was taken from me by a crowd of people who back of us were circling toward us now. And as Ismenus and Asopus once along their banks saw maddened throngs at night, whene'er the Thebans needed Bacchus, such were those who, sweeping scythe-like round that ring, were coming on, from what I saw of them, by goodwill ridden and by righteous love. And soon were they upon us, for the whole of that great crowd was moving at a run, and two ahead in tears were crying out,
Mary proceeded to the hills in haste.
And
Caesar, in order to subdue Ilerda, struck Marseille, then hurried on to Spain.
Quick, quick, lest time be lost through lack of love,
cried those that came behind them.
So that zeal in doing good may make grace green again.
O folk in whom keen fervour now redeems perhaps the negligence and slowness shown by your tepidity in doing good. This man who lives, and truly I lie not, desires, when sunlight once returns, to mount. Hence tell us where the nearest opening lies.
These were my leader's words, and one of those same spirits said,
Come on, behind us then, and thou wilt find the hole. So keen we are to keep on moving that we cannot stop. Forgive us then if lack of courtesy thou deem what we consider righteousness. I was San Zenos abbot at Verona, under the rule of worthy Barbarossa, of whom Milan in sorrow talketh still. And he has one foot in the grave already, who soon will for that monastery weep and grieve, because he had it in his power. For he, his son, in body wholly sick, were still in mind and also ill-begot, has had installed in its true shepherd's place.
I know not if aught else he said or ceased, so far had he run past us now, but this I heard, and I've enjoyed retaining it. Then he who is my help in every need said,
Turn in this direction, and behold two coming on who give a bite to sloth.
Moving behind them all, they said,
The folk for whom the sea was opened up were dead before the Jordan had perceived their heirs, and those who with the son of Anchises could not endure to toil unto the end gave themselves up to lead inglorious lives.
Then, when those shades were separated from us so far that they no longer could be seen, a new thought made its way into my mind, whence many other different thoughts were born, and I between them so confused became that wandering to and fro I closed mine eyes and changed what I had thought into a dream.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 18. Section 53 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 19. Purgatory, the fourth ring. Sloth, Dante's second dream. The Angel of Zeal, the fifth ring. Avarice and prodigality.
Within the hour when, vanquished by the earth, or even at times by Saturn, daytime's heat can warm the coldness of the moon no longer, when geomancers see their greater fortune rise in the east ere dawn, and on a path which doth not long stay dark for it, a female approached me in a dream with stammering tongue, with eyes asquint and crooked on her feet, with hands lopped off and pallor on her face. I fixed my gaze on her, and as the sun brings comfort to cold limbs which night-time chills, even so my looking at her freed her tongue, and afterward, in but a little time, completely straightened her, and gave that hue to her discoloured face which love desires. As soon as she had thus unloosed her speech, she then began to sing in such a way that from her I could hardly take my gaze.
I am,
she sang,
the lovely siren, she who in mid-ocean mariners bewitches. So much I please whoever heareth me. I turned Ulysses from his wandering course to hear my song, and who gets used to me seldom departs, so wholly I content him.
Her mouth had not yet closed, when lo, a holy lady at my side appeared, who ready was to put her to confusion.
Oh, Virgil, Virgil, who is this?
She cried in scornful tones, whereat he then advanced with eyes set only on the modest one. She seized the other, opened her in front, and rent her garments, showing me her belly. This woke me with the stench that issued from it. I turned my eyes, and my good teacher said,
I've called thee thrice at least. Arise and come. We'll find the gate through which thou mayst ascend.
I rose, and all the holy mountain's rings were with the high day's light already filled, as with the new sun back of us we moved. While I was following him, I held my head like one who, having it bowed down by thought, makes of himself a half-arch of a bridge. And then I heard,
Come on, the pass is here,
uttered in such a gentle, kindly way as in this mortal land is never heard. With outspread wings, which seemed the wings of swans, he who thus spoke directed us on high between the two side walls of the granite rock. He moved his pinions then, and fanning us, affirmed that those who mourn are happy, since possessed of comfort shall their spirits be.
What aileth thee, that only on the ground thou gazest?
Said my guide, when past the angel both he and I had climbed a little way, and I, a recent dream which to itself inclines me, makes me with such doubt advance that I cannot refrain from thought of it.
Thou hast perceived,
said he,
that ancient witch, who henceforth o'er us is alone lamented, and seen how from her one is freed. Let that suffice thee. Strike thy heels upon the ground, and turn thine eyes up toward the calling lure the eternal king whirls with the mighty wheels.
As is the falcon, which at first looks down, then turns around when called, and spreads his wings, keen for the quarry which attracts him. Such was I, and thus as long as ere the rock was cleft, to make a path for those that climb, I went along to where the circling starts. When out upon the fifth ring I had come, people therein I saw who, shedding tears, were lying wholly prone upon its bed.
My soul hath cloven to the trodden ground.
I heard them saying with such heavy sighs that what they said could hardly be made out.
O ye elect of God, whose sufferings here justice and hope are making less intense, direct us toward the steps that lead on high.
If ye are come exempt from lying down, and wish to find the path with greatest speed, let your right sides be always outward turned.
Thus asked the poet, and not far ahead, thus was the answer given. Hence as he spoke, I noticed where the other speaker hid, and then I turned mine eyes unto my lord, whereat he granted with a cheerful nod that which the looks of my desiring asked. When I was free to act as I inclined, I came and stood above the soul, whose words had made me notice him at first, and said, Spirit, who by thy tears art ripening that without which one cannot return to God, for my sake stay a while thy greater care. Say who thou wast, why ye hold up your backs, and whether thou wouldst have me get thee aught from there whence I, a living man, set forth. And he to me,
Why toward itself the sky is turning here our backs thou'lt know. But first, Know thou that I once sat in Peter's chair. Between Siestri and Chiavri there descends a lovely mountain stream, and from its name my race's title takes its greatest boast. For 1 month, and a little more, I felt how much the mighty mantle waits on him who keeps it from the mire, for all loads else seem feathers. My conversion was, alas, delayed, but when Rome's shepherd I was made, I came to know how false the world's life was. I saw that in it hearts can find no rest, nor could one in it higher rise than I. The love of this life, hence, was kindled in me. Till that time I had been a wretched soul, cut off from God, and wholly given to greed. Now, as thou seest, I'm punished for it here. What avarice doth is here made manifest in this purgation of converted souls. Nor hath this mount a penalty more bitter. And as our eyes were never upward turned, because intently fixed on earthly things, so justice here hath turned them to the ground. As avarice quenched our love for all good things, until well-doing had completely ceased, so here doth justice hold us in restraint, bound fast and fettered in our hands and feet, and here we'll stay, stretched out and motionless, as long as it shall please the righteous Lord.
I had knelt down and wished to speak, but just as I began, and he was made aware by listening only of my reverence.
What cause,
said he,
hath bent thee downward thus?
And I to him, because of your high rank my conscience troubled me for standing up.
Straighten thy legs, my brother,
he replied,
and rise. Err not. With thee and with the rest, a fellow servant of one power am I. If thou hast ever fully understood those holy gospel words, they neither marry. Well canst thou see why I am speaking thus. And now begone, and have thee stay no more, for, lingering here, thou hinderest the tears, wherewith I ripen that which thou hast said. A niece I have upborn, called a large, good in herself. So be it that our house, by its example, do not make her bad, and she is all that's left me of her.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 19. Section 54 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 20. Purgatory, Fifth Ring. Avarice and Prodigality. Instances of liberality and of greed. The Earthquake.
A will fights weakly against a stronger will. Hence I, myself displeasing, him to please, out of the water drew my sponge unfilled. I started, and along the space left clear close to the rocky cliff my leader moved, as neath its battlements one hugs a wall. For those who through their eyes pour, drop by drop, the evil which pervadeth all the world, approach too closely to the outer edge. Be thou accursed, thou ancient wolf, that prey far greater hast than have all other beasts, by reason of thy hunger's endless depth. O heaven, through whose revolving some it seems believe that here below conditions change, when will he come through whom this beast shall lead? As on we went with slow and scanted steps, and I was listening to the shades I heard weeping and uttering piteous lamentations. By chance I heard in front of us a voice cry out, "Sweet Mary!" in the tearful tones wherewith a woman cries in childbirth's pangs, and this was followed by,
"As poor thou wast, as by the hostelry may be perceived where thou didst lay thy sacred burden down."
Next after this I heard,
"O good Fabricius, with the virtue thou didst poverty prefer, to great possessions with iniquity.
So pleasing had these last words been to me, that further on I moved, that I might know the spirit from whose lips they seemed to come. He now was speaking of the generous gift bestowed by Nicholas upon the maids, to guide their youth into an honoured path. O soul that speakest of such worthy deeds, say who thou wast, said I, and why alone thou thus renewest this deserved praise. Thy words will not remain without reward, if I return to end that life's short course, which flieth onward toward its final term. And he,
I'll tell it thee, though not for help, that I may look for yonder, but because grace shines so brightly in thee, ere thy death. I was the root of that malignant plant, whose shadow darkens all the Christian land, so that good fruit is seldom picked from it. But if Douai, Lille, Ghent, and Bruges could, vengeance would soon be wrought for this, and I of him request it, who is judge of all. Yonder my name was Hugh Capet. From me have sprung the Philips and the Louises, who have in recent ages governed France. A Paris butcher's son I was, when all the ancient kings had passed away save one, a grey-robed monk. Tight in my hands I found the bridle of the kingdom's government, with so much power of recent gain, and such a host of friends, that to the widowed crown was raised the head of mine own son, with whom the line of their anointed bones began. As long as its great dowry of Provence had not deprived my family of shame, its worth was small, but still it did no harm. With that began its theft by force and fraud, for afterward, to make amends, Ponthieu ceased, with Normandy and Gascony. Charles came to Italy, and there to make amends, a victim made of Conradin, and then, to make amends, drove Thomas back to heaven. A time I see, not very long from now, which out of France will bring another Charles, to make both him and his the better known. He issues thence alone, and with no host, but with the jousting lance of Judith. This he thrust so, that he burst the paunch of Florence. As a result, not land, but sin and shame he'll win, of so much greater weight for him. The lighter he accounts such loss. I see the other Charles, once captured from his ship, his daughters sell and haggle for the price, as corsairs do with slave girls not their own. What more, O avarice, canst thou do with us, since thou hast to thyself so drawn my race, that e'en for its own flesh it careth not? That future ills and past ones may seem less. I see a Lagna by the lily entered, and, in his vicar, Christ of prisoner made. I see the latter mocked a second time. I see the vinegar and gall renewed, and him I see among living robbers free. And this new Pilato I behold so ruthless that, not content with this, he lawlessly into the temple bears his greedy sails. O when, my lord, shall I rejoice to see the vengeance in thy secret counsel hid, which now avails to make thine anger sweet, but of the Holy Spirit's only bride, I said just now, and thereby made thee turn to me for explanation, serves as answer to all our prayers, as long as daylight lasts, but soon as night returns, instead of these, we utter words which sound the opposite. We thereupon rehearse Pygmalion's story, and how of him his greedy lusted for gold, a traitor maid, a thief, a parasite, an avaricious Midas misery, which followed from his covetous request, and at which one will always have to laugh. Next, foolish Achan everyone recalls, who stole the plunder, so that even here the wrath of Joshua seems to bite him still. We then accuse Sapphira with her husband. We praise the kicks which Heliodorus got, while Polymnestor circles all the mount in infamy, who Polydorus killed. And finally our cries, tell us, Crassus, for thou dost know it, what's the taste of gold? Aloud at times speak one, another low, as each one's feelings spur him on to speak, in stronger now, and now in weaker tones. Hence I, in speaking of the god, which here is talked about by day, was not alone, but near us here none other spoke aloud.
Already had we gone away from him, striving to make our way along the path as fast as was allowed our powers, when I, like something falling, felt the mountain quake. Then such a chill took hold of me as he is wont to have who goeth to his death. Delos indeed shook not so terribly before Latona made therein her nest, in order to give birth to heaven's two eyes. Then such a cry arose on every side, that close to me my teacher drew and said,
Be not afraid, while I am guiding thee.
Glory to God.
They all said,
In the highest.
As far as I could understand from those nearby, where what was being shouted could be heard. Both motionless and in suspense we stood, as stood the shepherds who first heard that song, till when the trembling stopped, the shouting ceased. Thereafter we resumed our holy journey, watching the shades that lay upon the ground, returned already to their wonted place. No ignorance had ever with as great anxiety made me desire to know, unless in this my memory go astray, as that which, as I thought, I seemed to have. I neither dared to ask, because of haste, nor could I see there anything myself. So on I went, timid and lost in thought.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 20. Section 55 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Purgatorio, Canto 21. Purgatory, the fifth ring. Avarice and prodigality. Statius, the cause of the earthquake.
The natural thirst, which can never be quenched, save by the water asked for by the lowly young woman of Samaria as a boon, was troubling me, while hurry spurred me on behind my leader o'er the comfort path, and I was grieving for the just revenge. Then lo, as Luke records for us, the Christ, when risen from the burial cave, appeared before the two upon the road. A shade appeared, and came behind us as we watched the crowd which lay around us at our feet. But we perceived him not, hence he spoke first, and said,
May God, my brethren, give you peace.
We turned at once, and to this greeting Virgil replied with that which corresponds to it. Then he began,
Within the blessed assembly mayst thou be set at peace, by that just cord which in eternal exile bindeth me.
What?
He replied, as quickly on we went.
If ye are shades whom God deigns not on high, who guided you so far along his stairs?
My teacher then,
If thou regard the marks which this one bears, and which the angel draws, thou'lt see that with the good he needs must reign. But whereas she who spinneth night and day had not as yet drawn up for him the flax which Clotho lays and packs for everyone, his soul, which sisters to thee and me, could not in climbing here come up alone, because it seeth not as we. Hence I out of the ample throat of hell was drawn to show the way to him, and I shall show it as far as e'er my school can lead him on. But tell us, if thou knowest, why the mountain shook so just now, and why all seemed to shout with one accord down to its oozy base.
Thus by his asking he had threaded so the needle's eye of my desire, that merely with hope my thirst had come to be less craving. The former then began,
Nothing exists which this mount's sacred government can feel, that void of order is or against its wont. From every change this place up here is free. Whate'er heaven's self from its own self receives can be the cause of it, and nothing else. For neither rain, nor hail, nor snow, nor dew, nor frost falls any higher up than lies the little stairway of the 3 short steps. Clouds neither dense or rarefied appear, nor lightning flashes, nor yet Thomas' daughter, who often changes quarter in the world. Dry vapor goes no higher than the top of those 3 steps whereof I spoke to thee, and on which Peter's vicar had his feet. Low, perhaps, it trembles more or less, but never quakes up here because of wind concealed, I know not how, inside the earth. It trembles here whenever any soul feels pure enough to rise or starts to climb, and such a cry as this endorses it. Of purity the will alone gives proof, which, seizing on the soul, now wholly free to change its company, by willing helps it. It wills this from the first, but that desire, which gains the will God's justice turns toward pain, as it was once toward sin, allows it not. And I, who have 500 years and more lain in this woe, felt only now within me a free volition for a better sphere. That's why thou didst the earthquake feel and hear the pious spirits on this mountain praise that Lord, who soon, I pray, will send them up.
He thus addressed us, and since one in drink delights, according as his thirst is great, I could not say how much he did me good. And my wise leader,
Now I see the net which holds you here, and how it opens, why it trembles here, and why ye all rejoice. Now who thou wast be pleased to let me know, and also let thy words include for me, why thou hast lain so many centuries here.
At that time, when held by the Most High King, good Titus took due vengeance for the wounds, from which came forth the blood by Judas sold, I was in great renown.
That spirit said,
Up yonder with the name which longest lasts and honors most, but not as yet with faith. So sweet my song that, though to loosen, Rome drew me to herself, where I deserved to have my temples crowned with myrtle wreath. Statius they call me still up there, of Thebes I sang, of great Achilles next. But 'neath this second load I sank upon the way. The seeds of my enthusiasm were the sparks which warmed me, of that fire divine wherewith more than 1,000 poets are inflamed. I mean the innate which my mother was and nurse in poetry, and lacking which not by a drachm's weight had I stirred the scales. And to have lived on earth when Virgil lived, to one sun spirit more would I consent than what I owe to issue from my ban.
These words turned Virgil toward me with a look which silently,
Be silent,
said, and yet the power that wills cannot do everything. For tears and laughter follow so the passion, from which they each take rise, that least of all do they obey the will in those most truthful. I only smiled like one who winks, whereat the shade kept still, and looked into my eyes, wherein expression is most fixed, and said,
So mayst thou bring unto a happy end so great a toil? Why was it that thy face showed me just now the flashing of a smile?
I now am caught on one side and the other. One asks for silence, the other conjures me to speak. I therefore sigh, and by my teacher am understood.
be not afraid to talk,
The latter said to me,
but speak and tell him what he so eagerly desires to know.
I therefore said, Perhaps thou marvellest, O ancient spirit, at the smile I gave, but I would have still greater wonder seized thee. This spirit here, who upward leads mine eyes, that Virgil is, from whom thou didst of old derive the strength to sing of men and gods. If thou hast given my smile some other cause, leave it as not the true one, and believe it was the words thyself didst say of him. Already was he stooping to embrace my teacher's feet, but he said,
Brother, no, for thou, a shade now, dost a shade behold.
Rising, he said,
Thou now canst understand the sum of love which warmeth me toward thee, since I forget our disembodied state and act with shades as if they solid were.
End of Purgatorio, Canto 21. Section 56 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon.
I'll take care of him.
Why do you care so much?
This whole business started with my father sealing the entrance between the two worlds. And now, my brother's trying to break that spell and turn everything into Demonville. This is my family matter, too. Quite frankly, at first, I didn't give a damn. But because of you, I know what's important now. I know what I need to do.
Wait.
Trust me, I'll make things right for you. That's what my soul is telling me to do.
Use this.
How much is it gonna cost me?
You can give me your name.
Dante.
Dante. Please. Free my father.
I will.